What's up, everyone? Welcome back to week 2 of Free. I'm Dynamite, joined by none other than Chris Chaos. How you doing today, Chris?
Pretty good, Dynamite. How's it going? I'm pretty good, pretty good. Enjoy some Guilty Gear. Everything
Yes,
else.
sir.
So just
Uh,
ready to go ahead and get some things going on today. What's going on?
yeah. So this is our free advice section for anyone who's new to the stream. We're going to be just talking with Chris here, one of our resident gear experts and mentors about the game. We're going to cover some topics that we didn't really get to last week. We want to kind of to start things off slow, being week 1. Week 2, we're going to get a little bit more in depth. And then from there, if we do have time, we'll take some questions from the chat as well and have Chris answer. So without further ado, we're going to get right to it. First and foremost, I want to go over the point system for free. There will be an official graphic coming out from the Kick Esports Twitter account later on this weekend. But until then, we will go over them in voice only. As announced at the very beginning, Free is a beginner's series. So we'll have 3 weeks of points collections, 3 brackets essentially. And then the 4th week will be a winners finals week. So just everyone's invited to a top 8 essentially. No one starts with any losses and we play it out from there. So that'll be its own week. That's the 4th week. How do you qualify for the finals week? Well, there are 2 ways to do it. One is to win one of the weeks of free. So when you finish first place in one of the tournaments from week 1 to 3, you automatically qualify for finals week. So you don't have to worry about points or anything like that. The second way is the point system. So after first place, second place earns points through 8th place, and those points will be collected over the weeks, and then we'll tally them up. In the top 5 placers will then be the rest of the bracket for finals week. So 8 people in finals week altogether. 3 of them will be winners of the season from week 1 to 3, and then the rest will be the points collectors. So what does that look like? That means that if you collect, second place and 5th place and 7th place, you'll have 100 points. If those 100 points are in the top 5 placings throughout everyone that's participated, then you will be invited to finals week. That's the way that'll work. We'll have more on finals week coming up, but that is how the point system will work. As I said before, we will have an official graphic coming out later this weekend from the Kick Esports Twitter account, but just wanted to cover that off before we jump into the free advice section proper. So, Chris, it's been about 2 weeks. 2 weeks for if you had early access. About, I guess, maybe a week and a half if you didn't. I know you've been working with some people who are new to fighting games and some people who are a little bit experienced with fighting games but new to gear. How do you think these beginners are kind of taking to the game? What is some of your experiences and some thoughts that you take away from people who you are helping out or just even watching develop on their own?
Oh, well, I want to say that first and foremost, a lot of the folks that I've been working with and talking with and helping out have been being approaching the game with a positive mindset. They understand a lot of them, kind of have like this whole, I have to get good now mentality really, really quick. But we have to have a discussion with like, hey, this is the beginning of the game's life. Like, don't rush it. Like,
Right.
no, it's still early in. You're going to make mistakes, and this is the learning process. Everybody's learning. Everybody's pretty much learning this game here, including the veterans. A
Yeah.
lot of things have changed, so it pretty much is like a clean slate for a lot of folks. But with generally the newer players, from what I've been seeing, is that they've been really quick to like pick things up. Honestly, like the basic concepts that are like from for this version of gear have been a bit easier to pick up, rather than previous versions. So it makes they're able to like be more it helps out with that because it's easier for them to be more confident in those decision making, and it's easier to see things of why they were winning or losing. But yeah, like at the end of the day, I do like the fact that like everyone is just absorbing all the knowledge that they've been coming to me. They've been even asking me for sets, and the big thing is that they're constantly asking questions. Always ask
Yeah.
questions. If you don't know, do not feel bad for not knowing. Everyone is learning. If you don't know the answer, the person that you're playing it may know the answer themselves, or they may just know why it works. Because they're doing it. At the end of the day, they may not know it, but like you can work together with each other to figure it out. No, no, communication's big in this game, and no, especially with rollback netcode, you're able to communicate with other players from way further out now. Like you can just jump on Twitter or something like, "Hey, I've been having this with this, and I played with that, whatever." So people have been doing more communication, especially at the beginner level. They've been like, "Hey, that was pretty cool," like, "How'd you do this?" or anything like that. That's a big thing right now, and it's showing just the rapid growth of like the those in the beginner phases, and just I'm actually impressed with what I'm seeing so far. Yeah.
That's great. I agree. I think that in a tip for people who are starting out is always ask questions, right? Like find obviously you have to find the right people who can give you the right direction, but asking those questions even of yourself, right? Like even if you have no one else to ask, you can always ask yourself questions and try to figure things out, and that's a really good way to develop and to grow your mental approach to the game as well. And another thing you touched on was the fact that the playability of the game, is you have such a wide margin with how the online netcode is. You can play, you can be a beginner from New York and play with a beginner from someone from California, and be playing just fine, right? So that helps too, because then you feel like you're in a broader base and you don't have to just stick to your scene. There's nothing wrong with obviously sticking to the local scene. We love our local scenes, but having a larger pool of people who are starting, depending on who you might have, your friends in real life or people you've met, playing sets through a Discord, whatever it might be, that really does encourage you to keep going, because you really want to have a pool of people that you play with and not just one person, right? Like it really helps to have that pool, and if you have people who are at your level, you can really work on some things there. It works out really well. So I'm happy to hear and see that people who are trying the game out, either their first time for a fighting game or their first time for jumping into a gear game, and they're liking what's there so far. So that is definitely something that is encouraging. And it being about the second weekend, I'm sure that our next topic will be an important one as well. And it really deals with, you've pretty much selected your character by this time. If you haven't, you found at least some that you like, right? And you're kind of rotating through them and playing and seeing what's what. Or maybe you haven't found someone. Why do you think, or I should say, how do you think people who have found a character that they like, but they've realized or feel that that character has some struggles, what is your thought process? What is your thought process behind that, and how you work with your character, Chris? And what do you do in training mode to also address those things where you think you may not have answers or your character might have weaknesses? What is the mental approach, and essentially what is the practical approach, like how you actually approach to discovering some answers?
First and foremost, don't be a defeatist. Do not go in with that saying that there is no answer. This is fighting games. There is an answer. It may not be the answer you were expecting, but there is a solution to the problem. You know, don't give
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
So, that's a huge thing. So, and for figure out issues, like they can be a various of things. So let's just talk about like no, people always jumping in and having issues with like anti-airing, right? We'll just say like no, we'll use that for example. So pretty much first and foremost, no, what character is doing it, and realize and seeing like no, hey, like how they're jumping in. How are they jumping in on me? Are they super jumping or are they regular jumping? No, to like just to try to narrow things down, right? Just a little by
yeah,
little, not to take things and not to take everything in like a giant, a giant like pretty much like a giant dictionary and just try to slam it all in your head.
sure.
Break down your issues little by little, one at a time. Um, so let's just say like I have like no Ramlethal constantly using jump H with sword on me, right? But I try to 6P and my 6P is not and this 6P is getting beaten. Well, like but this is my anti-air option. Why is it not working? Well, first and foremost, like, easily just go in the lab, and just recreate the situation. Like, like have the kid, have the character jump up, dash in, do a jump in, just to
Yep.
like try to get that information, right? So then you try it out, see why, like, can my 6P work? Like, my 6P is not working the way I usually do it. What if I do it earlier? Do I have to do it later, or does this not work, or is this not the right option for this situation, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
so let's just say, like, you try to do the 6P, but it's just not working. You then say, okay, well, if I can't challenge it, maybe I should move around it. What if I move around it? Can I move away from it from this range? Like, so, like, they go ahead and jump in and do the jump button. Can you run under? Okay, let's say, okay, I can't run under it because it's too big. Understand. Okay, what if I try jumping backwards? It's like, okay, well, I can jump backwards, but I can jump backwards and it gives me some space. Let's see. Okay, so I'm at least able to evade it. So now they can't just jump on me for free and get their offense done.
Right. And so though that's just a really good, I like the way you phrase that because it started with what is the thing that the opponent is doing that is giving me problems, right? It started actually not on your character, but on what the situation was that created this feeling of like, I'm not sure what either I can do or my character can do, right? It's always taking it away from my character and saying, well, what is the scenario in which I'm having an issue, right? And then from there saying, hey, okay, I know that 6P, and for those who are beginners, 6P is the universal anti-air for all the characters in Guilty Gear Strive. It That is my usual anti-air option, but with someone like Ram, maybe her jump heavy, which is the jumping downward sword thrust, maybe that is not necessarily being stopped by 6P. Well, why is that the case, right? And so starting kind of from there, from a this is the scenario, this is what I think usually should work. Let me discover why it doesn't work. And that's one of the reasons why, in the fighting game community, we call it the lab, right? Because you're experimenting, you're trying things out, you're finding, things that you thought may have worked, may not really work. And so I like the idea of how you said, hey, just because this, which is my universal option, doesn't work, what else can I do? Right. And that's when you came with the, well, maybe I can jump back. Maybe I can, try to avoid that jumping heavy attack altogether and then approach it from a different way.
Yeah, like, a lot of things is that, like, people are always so excited on beating this one thing. Some things just can't be beat, like, either can't be beat or are too difficult to beat in certain situations. So the best thing to do in a situation where you can't beat it, or, like, no, can't stuff it or anything like that, is to evade it. Evasion is also a part of, like, a part of the game. You may not be like, it may not give you, like, the damage or the spacing that you so desire, but it's better than getting that situation where you either have to block it and then have to deal with the mix, or try to anti-air and get hit and then you get comboed. It's way better than those type of situations. Am I right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that a lot of beginners will hear people who critique their play, and well, people who know what they're doing when critique their play say, you know what, even though you lost that, I like your movement. Like that was one of the first things that you told me when I was starting out, is hey, you didn't win the set or you didn't win the game, but I like the way that you were moving. You were very active, right? Like I like your movement. And that in and of itself, it really means, hey, I like your movement. It's not talking about your combos, your confirms, like all of that is saying the way that you're answering some of these scenarios, even though they might not be the optimal ones, is leaving you in a position where you're being active and you're not just standing still on the screen waiting to start blocking, right?
Yeah, like, the movement goes into neutral. Like, having that is going to save lives, and a lot of people don't really realize that, because when you're playing neutral, you're not getting the damage, right? You're not getting those hits, or like your combo starters or like that, but it keeps you alive so that you can get it later. You know?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so when it comes to characters and kind of what we would like to think of, okay, I this character may or may not have strengths in this area. what would you be your advice to people starting out when it comes to your character's strengths, right? So like, how do I, if I hear time and time again, okay, well, this character is really strong when they do X, Y, or Z, right? How do I, as a beginner, capitalize on those elements? Should I be going to training mode? Should I be focusing on them during matches? Like, what would be your advice to a beginner to learn how to capitalize on character strengths?
Yeah. Well, for character strength, it's always good to understand what character you have, what their tool set is, and you know, as long as you have a basic understanding and grasp of it, it'll help you at least come up with something in the lab. So a lot of things is a lot of beginners don't know how to lab, and it becomes and that itself can be difficult. So like the first thing I always want to say is experiment on your own, right? Like mess around with the character, mess around with these things, see what works, see what doesn't work. And just have some fun with it. If you are having issues of trying to replicate things or like things that you've seen like that or whatever, try watching some match videos. Like and this is a very key important thing. Is like watch don't have to watch the top players because like when you're learning the game, you're playing a much different game at the start. The game, as you're learning, will then evolve to that level. When you're watching, matches, don't necessarily go directly to the top players of your character because, you more than likely will not get those situations because of, the level of play. And that's not to knock anybody playing at the beginning level. It's just that, everyone's in the process of learning. So everyone's going to be a little bit less refined, or not have their decision making all there because they haven't seen as much. They haven't seen as much as more than veteran players. So watching matches from any characters, any players that you probably haven't heard of, or even watching your own and seeing the interactions that you're getting and I got this situation from being here and I was able to get this combo, or I was able to avoid this and it opened up me to do this, but I dropped the combo. Does the combo work? You start asking questions, start having more critical thinking about your own game and about other matches that you're watching. Now, this isn't to say not to watch top level players. When you're watching, you can watch those videos because it will let you get an idea of what's to come later, what's to add to your game over time.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, you're trying to get your basics together. Work around your fundamental gameplay. Get your B&Bs down. And understand how to defend yourself at a basic level.
Yeah.
So take your time with it, video watch, go in the lab, experiment, have some fun with it, and then go out and play with some of your friends. Or play with, or if you don't have anyone readily available, at the time that you want to play, go online and try some games. Just don't expect everything to work because training mode and actual fighting and fighting another person are two completely different things, right? At the end of the day, when you're in training mode, you're fighting against a standstill opponent or a AI. When you're fighting another person, they're in control of that character, and you can't really make those reads as if you were in the training mode. They're not going to cooperate and operate the way you want them to do because they're being controlled by someone else, not you.
I think that those are really good points, especially when it comes to not just watching top level players, right? One of the mistakes that you actually helped me with a lot is, yes, you can watch them, but don't expect to jump in and do exactly what they're doing. And like you said, don't expect to get the situations that they get. And what that means is you might see a top level player get 3 command grabs off in a row. But the reason why they're able to do that, a command grab being something that, you can't block, obviously, is that they are experienced in conditioning their opponent to block, right? They put the fear in their opponent to hit a button. But as a beginner, and even on the intermediate level, you rarely are going to run into interact because people want to be active, right? They want to hit buttons. I'm going to play the game, and you may not get those command grabs. So you might go away thinking, hey, my character isn't that good. They say this command grab's really good, but I can never do it, right? Like no one ever like takes my command grab. And that leads into what you said before. Experiment. Well, why what do I do if I know that they're not going to block? What do I do? Right? How do I capitalize off of that? Then you'll start to see yourself developing in forcing the situations that you see those stronger players have. So I completely agree. Watching people at all skill levels who play your favorite character or the character that you're playing really does help, because you might watch someone who's intermediate level and be like, oh, I have this happen to me all the time. Yet I never see someone who is, always top 16, top 8 have that problem, right? I don't see them have to face this issue. So being able to address all situations when it comes to who your opponent is and what their skill level is really does lend to your development as a player. And I cannot stress that enough. Also, as you said, take your time, right? Don't go into a match with a laundry list of things you want to implement, right? Because it's going to frustrate you. From personal experience, trust me. I've done it and said, okay, I want to do these 5 things, right? And it's like, well, maybe I'll get 1 done, maybe 2. But if you say, well, I only got these 2 things, but I wanted to do all 5, you start to frustrate yourself. So, and that's when it comes to characters' weaknesses and strengths.
Yeah.
So I really do. I like that answer, and I really do enjoy the way that you phrased it as well, is to experiment and have fun. Because some days you are just sitting in training mode, practicing things or trying things out, and you're not playing any matches. You want to figure things out and you want to take things slow. The last thing that you said that I thought was really important is watching your own replays. And it is, trust me, it is not fun. Some of those, it is one of the hardest things to do, is to go back, especially when it's a loss, is to go back and watch it and be like, oh man, I got really blown up here and I don't want to watch this again. But you start to be able to replay it, and you don't have the pressure of being active in the match, right? You can watch it from both sides and say, okay, now I'm starting to see what happened here. Like, what happened with this decision? Like what happened? And I think that replays are essential for people who are trying to develop in the game, right? To take it beyond just the casual level.
Yes, and to go ahead and add on to that, because I do want to discuss how important replays are. When you're watching your own replays, it's okay to watch them by yourself. But if you have another person that maybe from your scene, or maybe one of your good friends that happen to play in the game, if you have someone else to watch those replays with, watch it with them, because we are our own worst critics. We'll see one mistake and be like, oh, I shouldn't have did this. Should have did this instead. Or, oh, man, I shouldn't have went for this combo route. I should have did this instead. And blah, blah. Or like, oh, I should have moved around like this. And blah. Like, the thing is, in the heat of the battle, you're going to make decisions right at the fight, because things are so happening so fast. It's always easy to look at a match and then be like, in retrospect, I probably could have did this differently, or I could have did this differently. But then you beat yourself up over it, right? It's not fun to watch losses, but you learn from them. You learn the do's and don'ts, because even in losses, you can still find some success in other areas. Because sometimes maybe you lost 0-2 in the tournament, but you were able to anti this person, so they stopped jumping at you, so they had to approach you differently. Having someone around you that may be able to look at the game differently will be like, well, you did do this good, and then now the loss is well, this losing did suck, but at least I know I'm good at this, so I need to work on this now, and then you slowly develop from there.
Yeah, no, that is very true. It's finding, and this is hard. Don't expect to take this mentality on and immediately run with it, because especially like I said, if you're trying to move past the casual level and say this is something I really enjoy and I want to get better at it. It is easy to say that, hard to approach it with the mentality of saying I'm going to accept the losses that I have and go back and look at them and make them better. People of all skill levels have trouble with that. It's not something that affect that it's like, oh, only beginners and intermediate players affect that. No. This is something that is across the board, right? So you have to learn what also works for you. Some players are very analytical and critical about it. They'll say, okay, hey, I'm going to immediately drop this out of my, emotional space. And some people, it takes them a day or two to say, you know what, I got to go through my feelings. I got to empty those out, and then I can go back and watch it. And it really just varies on what type of person you are.
Exactly. Like it's kind of one of the reasons why I think fighting games are like the hardest genre to get into, because if you're playing like a MOBA or a team-based game, on a loss, you can always pick and find out a way to like throw it on someone else. Like, we lost because they weren't in the lane here, or we lost because they weren't protecting this area here, blah blah blah. But in a fighting game, it's 1v1. It's you versus your opponent. So when you lose, there's no one else to blame but yourself. It's always easy to blame the game or blame your character. At the end of the day, you're the one making decisions, and you're the one that has to take responsibility and take accountability of the decisions you made that led to that loss. And a lot of people have a very hard time of just like like they say, the hard pill to swallow. A lot of people have like a very hard time accepting that. But like once you have like and like I said, losing is not fun. No one likes losing. That's just like that is. And unfortunately in fighting games there's one winner and one loser. And like you're both playing to go ahead and like get that result. Everybody wants to be the winner, but somebody has to take an L. And if you take an L, do not beat yourself up over. Learn from it. Be like, no, don't be. It's not the end of the world. And also like especially with Strive right now, we're like barely in week 2 if you didn't get early access. So like having a win now mentality will put you in a downward spiral where you don't want to be, and then you'll just not want to like not enjoy yourself. You have a much more difficult time picking up other things or receiving advice from other people, and then like a lot of folks end up just not wanting to play anymore. So like go in with a positive approach even through the losses, and in your wins, it's always great to review your wins too, because it's like, well, I did these things right. Are there other things I could have done better, or is there something that went wrong in the match that I was able to I was still able to win, but something wrong went in the match. Is there a way I could have avoided that? So looking over wins very easy, but you'll learn a lot more about yourself when you watch a loss.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, that it's a journey, and it's not something that you're going to figure out in 2 weeks that the game has been out, or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, even a month or 2 months or 3 months. These are, especially if you enjoy the game, plan to play it for a while, for as long as you enjoy it, right? And have some of that foresight to say, okay, I'm not going to focus on I just need to win right now, but how do I grow with the game? Because trust me, there's going to get a point in time where you hop online on Strive and people are not going to be at the same level generally that they were at the beginning of the game. That's why they always say people keeping up with the meta, right? Because there's going to be a certain group, no matter what their skill level is, that are going to be accustomed to the game mechanics and et cetera, et cetera. So making sure that you grow holistically is always going to be important. And so that's one of the things that, I completely agree. You really want to try to focus on. And also, as you always say, take your time. Take your time. Do not rush and think that, okay, even with free, it's a beginner's bracket series, but it's okay if you don't win a tournament of free, that's okay. The experience is what matters here more than anything else. And that's really what you want to focus on. So, with that said, we are going to jump in, get some questions from the chat. If you have any questions for Chris or myself, we'll try to answer them for about 10 minutes. And then we are going to take a small break after that and get underway with top 16. But first, let's get some questions from the chat. Anything you want to ask about Strive or fighting games in general, feel free to toss a question in. And if appropriate, we will answer it. I've got to put that in there.
Sure. See here. Man. Gotta love it. Questions like that. See here? Yeah. But yeah.
Yes, should I drop Kai? I lost my matches.
Let's see. I'll say no. Look at no. Have fun. If you're losing your matches, there's a reason behind those matches. Go back. It's what we saw. It said earlier. like what happened. You have to review what happened, right? Before blaming the character, you have to look at like the decisions that were made in the fight. You know, like hey, was there ever no, was there something things that went wrong that I could have avoided? Is there something I was letting my opponent do that they didn't have to, that I was letting them get away with? You ask yourself a lot of these questions first before reconsidering switching a character. Um, every character has a specific tool set that's designed to do certain things. Like, for example, Kai, right? He's in this game, like, he's more designed to be like more of a whiff punishment character than like your standard Shota that's just Hadouken and Shoryuken and Tatsumaki Senpaki, whatever how to say it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he's like not like he's not your standard Shoto, right? He has buttons that are really elongated and of course like they have hurt boxes on them. So the thing is that he's designed to whiff punish his opponents and get his offense started. Like so you could be approaching the character in a completely different manner that may not work for the way it's designed. But like the thing about Guilty Gear is that you can transform things by using like meter to like get those things going. So it's all about how creative you can be to make that playstyle work. So like maybe it's just like look into the characters, look into things first before considering dropping a character.
Great answer. So I try to practice every day. What are good habits and things to work on when you practice?
Let's see here. When it comes to like just like everyday practice, first off, movement. Work on your movement. You want to know how to like be able to be crisp and like and be in good positions in the neutral game. Like whether it's like practice your instant air back dashes or like your double jumps and learn the positions of where they're going to be at. So where your character is going to be at. Also couple B&Bs, like have a list of B&Bs is always a really good start, and then to like get your just to have a couple basic combo routes going, having like 3 or 5 to like to like have as a backup to get you started is always good to have. Let's see here. Experimenting with the system mechanics, like roaming cancel, even if it's just like pressing a button and dash roaming canceling in this game, to understand like can this far range button allow me to get a dash RC and actually confirm? To take advantage of your footsies, there's a lot of things you can do like in Guilty Gear Strive to like to set that up. But I think moving, let's see, anti-airs, basic combos, and and learning the roaming cancel mechanic to like to have like a base understanding of that, like on a regular basis is a really good start. Of course, there's other things we can go into that are much more like much deeper than that, but I think at the very beginning, that's a good place to start.
Yep. Yeah. I like the fact that the first thing you said was movement and not combos, right? Yep. Like everybody wants to get in and do combos. And especially from a starting fighting game player, because they look cool. I'm not gonna lie to you. Everybody loves a cool combo. But the first thing you said was actually movement. And I think that that's something that if you're starting out especially, or if you're at the intermediate level, to really think about and consider.
Absolutely. Like it's combo is easy, neutral is hard. In order to understand neutral, you have to be good at movement. To be better at neutral, you have to understand the movement. You have to understand the places you are on the screen. And because that is where you're going to get your success on how to hit people. Because if you learn how to hit people, then you know what combos you can go for, how to maximize your damage, how to get that wall break, get that corner carry, get the kill if you need it, like having that information down at a bit, for movement and neutral will help you get better opportunities to get those combos.
Yeah, I mean that's. No, go ahead. Please finish.
Because a lot of people don't really look at it that way. They're you jump in, you want to do the coolest thing ever, and that's fine. Go ahead and practice that. But also understand that sometimes you're not just gonna run up and duff somebody. They'll be able to stop you. So you have to work around the other person's options.
Yeah. We have the last 2 questions that we're going to take. The first one: how do you all practice anti-airing? That's a good question, I feel, for most folks. Yeah, I'll let you take that one, Chris.
Okay. Well, for practicing anti-airs, it it becomes very weird because depending on the characters that you're fighting, and it can also vary on how you anti-air people. So obviously, the first thing you want to practice is how to 6P people. You know, like see where your 6P works and where it doesn't work. You also want to see how if 6P doesn't work, are there any other buttons that I have that'll work? And also the range of where they're approaching you. Because you got to remember, there's neutral jump, forward jump, super jumps, air dashes. Like like you can set the dummy up to like come in with these type of different approaches and prepare yourself for those type of jump in arcs and have it on random. The training mode allows you to have that. Like, you just go to the whatever character you're having, you have the dummy, you can just do like a neutral jump into a button, then save that, then go to the next recording, do like a super jump into a button, save that, etc., etc., etc. If do that way you can see what 6P does work against, what 6P doesn't work against. Then you can see like, well, I have a really good 5P. Can that work? Like, see if your 5P works. And in some crazy cases, 5K. Like, for example, Soul Bad Guy. He has like a very amazing anti-air with 5K. Same thing with Chip. His 5P is 3 frames. That's why like I mentioned 5P. I'm a Chip player. So like that's why I went to that first. There's also, if they're able to jump and you can't anti-air them directly, can you run under? Can you run under and get an anti-air? Maybe there's a hurt box behind them. So if they do a super jump, can you run under and get a 6P? Can you run under and get a 2H or 5K? It's a lot of ways going about it, but setting a dummy for like different air approaches with a jump option, attack option, and prepare yourself so you can just like do neutral jump into like the actual jump to prepare yourself. So don't just have the recording just immediately jump into it. Have it neutral jump and then do the jump art that you want and perform an attack.
Makes sense. Yeah. Great answer and great question. Last question, and I feel like this is actually a really good question to end on. Probably could go for another 30 minutes about this, but we only have maybe 5 or 10 left. Okay, so how would one deal with an opponent character who excels at rushdown? And I know for beginners that is, and intermediate for everybody. Like let's just cut to the chase, right? Yeah. Rushdown can be difficult to deal with, especially in Guilty Gear Strive, as we're finding out. I mean, in any fighting game, though, especially from a beginner standpoint, how does one deal with a character who that's their specialty, right? What they're going to do is they're going to pressure you, they're going to force you to block, and you just feel like there's nothing you can do.
Okay, so first and foremost, like this goes back to what we were mentioning last week, the neutral triangle. Like, there's the neutral. The approaches of neutral are rush down, let's see, with punishment, and space control. Rush down loses space control. Space control uses the whiff punishment, and whiff punishment loses the rush down in the general cases. That's how your triangle works. So if someone's rushing you down, you have to be able to put things out there for them to run into these things to sway them from not like running at you directly. Because like if their whole thing is like, I want to get in, I want to rush you down, you have to pretty much put out a stick. You have to put a big stop sign out there and be like, no, like no. But in the heat of battle, that is very hard. But like that's what training. That's why I like. And you heard us mention it multiple times over and over again. Training mode. That characters want to run at you. Like there's many ways they can run at you directly, run and jump at you, all that type of stuff. Characters have forward moving special moves. So it's all about being training to prepare yourself for those. Like if a chip wants to run in and do far slash, maybe if you're like Kai, maybe if he runs forward, you do far S. And like you may not get much off of that because at the beginning of the round you don't have any meter, but it pretty much is it's a deterrent. You're a deterrent play style to stop them from doing this. And if they don't stop, they'll keep the damage will add up.
Yeah.
And then when you get meter, it'll really add up. Now, and everybody always has this leads to like the next thing. But what if they get in though? So that's that right there is like the thing that is very difficult to deal with. Defense is hard. Like it's one of the harder parts about the game, and it can be very scary because no one likes getting hit, and no one likes the ability to not want to press buttons.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to that point where they're in there, you have to just be ready on the defensive end. Block. Watch what your opponent is doing. Are they trying to like stagger pressure me? If they're staggering me and doing different slow strings, they want me to press so they can get a counter hit. They're looking for damage. Don't give it to them. If they're like, if they're trying to constantly just go for tick throws, and like no like crouching light to throw, or like or like a 5K dash up throw, like they're like, okay, they're trying to play a throw game. So let me see. Like that's where the whole mindset of like take the throw comes in, because a throw doesn't do that much damage, and a throw is only scary when you're at lower health, right? So the thing is that throws can also lead to you trying to want to swing and get a counter hit. So if you see someone trying to tick throw you, you can take the risk of swinging and hitting them out of the throw, or jump out. Vary your options. Vary your options or defense. Because if like because the more you have, the more options that you're preparing yourself defensively, the harder it is for the rushdown character to open you up. And if it's harder for them to open you up, they then take more risk to extend and overextend, which makes them punishable. See
Yeah.
it? And yes, and yeah, that's the thing. Throws do give Oki. That's like any knockdown gives a sweep gets you Oki. That's the thing. You have to be defensive if you're in that situation and work your way out. Don't rush it. Don't force it. Be very mindful of the decisions you make, right? And here's the thing. Sometimes you're gonna be wrong. You're gonna be wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I say with everybody. Sometimes you take a risk, you live with the decision you make. Sometimes it leads to you losing, sometimes it gets you out. But like you have to make decisions. Like, jumping out, disrespect, using FD to push your opponents out, because that's also a big thing that people are need to realize. If you have meter, you can use faultless defense to push them out a little bit so that you can, jump away, or you can press a button to to catch them trying to extend. You can also use the system mechanics like Gold RC. If you see them doing larger strings that leads into larger buttons, Gold RC. And it gives you an option to go ahead and be able to free yourself up a little bit, so then you can okay, now I have this, and now that he's off me a little bit, what's going to be my escape plan, right?
Yeah.
So it's a topic that we can go on forever and ever on, and because there's so many different types of scenarios a rushdown character can present to you, but it all comes down to the end of the day, just being patient, watching what your opponent is doing, and getting a good understanding of what they want from you when they're defending. Do they want you to mash? Do they want you to jump out? Do they want you to use defensive options? And when you see that, and you get a better understanding of it, and that comes with time, don't give it to them. Give them something different.
Yeah.
The more they're on their toes, the easier it is to snipe them out of their offense. And then now you knock them down. Guess what? Now it's time for you to play the game. Yes, buddy.
Yeah, that's a really good answer, and I think that it shows the depth of the game, even at the lower levels. But again, it touches on movement that we've talked about, touches on patience that we talked about, the rewards of going into training mode to see what other characters can do to you, and it also talks about learning what the defensive options are, right? Don't just go for, okay, I know how to do all the combos in the game. Well, that's great. What are you going to do when you have to start blocking, right? And so that is something to digest, and it might be a bit much right now to digest all of it. Go back, listen to this, listen to the VOD, and take it slowly. Maybe you train and say, okay, I'm just going to train on how to stop staggering, right? Like how to stop my opponent from staggering normals against me, right? That's fine. You don't have to learn the whole defensive suite at one time. You can focus on one thing at a time, and that's what's so great about these games, is that you can take it at your own pace. So again, fantastic questions. Thank you, Chris, for helping us get a little bit better and dropping some free advice on us. We're going to take a short break, but before we do, Chris, tell people where they can find you.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at ChrisChaos_21. I'm also on Twitch at Chris_Chaos_. I am going to be streaming Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for some Guilty Gear Strive. So For you guys who are interested in seeing some chip or have any questions that lead to down the line where like we can hop in training mode, holla at me when I'm live.
Fantastic. I've been Dynamite. As always, you can find me at twitter.com/BLM Dynamite, also twitch.tv/BLM Dynamite. Stay tuned, stay locked. Go ahead, get something to drink, get a refreshment, get some snacks, whatever you want. We'll be back in a few with top 16. I'm going to have the fantastic voices of NT, One Evolution, and Nagarimi coming at you soon. So stick around and we'll be right back. Catch you then.
Peace.
I wanna just be a trigger with a burning